Football is more than goals. It's about where the world wants to watch and where the best players dream to play. For years, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico turned the Champions League into their personal playground. But today, something has shifted. The biggest story in football isn't being written on the pitch, it's in the balance sheets. England and Spain are locked in a silent war, a financial and competitive arms race where one side spends like empires and the other counts every coin, because the Premier League offers not only the money, but the fiercest competition, the global audience, and the chance to face the very best every single week. So how did the world's most decorated league lose its crown? And can La Liga ever take it back? Let's start with a number that will blow your mind. In the summer of 2025, Premier League clubs spent £3.19 billion on transfers, a new record that shattered their previous high by over $700 million. Meanwhile, across the border in Spain, all 20 La Liga clubs combined spent just €555 million. Do the math. English clubs outspent Spanish clubs 6-1. But here's where it gets truly insane. Chelsea, despite selling players worth $267 million, still had a net spend that dwarfed entire leagues. Even newly promoted sides joined the spending spree. Sunderland, back in the top flight, splashed over £100 million. That's double what Atletico Madrid, Champions League regulars, managed to invest. And Barcelona, they made just 3 signings this summer. Their marquee addition, Joan Garcia, a goalkeeper from local rivals Espanyol, for €25 million. That's what Brighton spends on squad rotation players. To put this in perspective, Norwich City, when they were relegated from the Premier League in 2022, earned $118 million just in television money. That's more than 17 of the 20 La Liga clubs received for an entire season. This wasn't always the case. In 2013, the Premier League was already the richest, but only 46% ahead of Germany's Bundesliga. By 2021, English clubs outspent Spanish clubs by 4.5-1. Today, it's 6-1. The gap isn't closing, it's accelerating. Every transfer window, the financial chasm grows wider. Every season, the power balance shifts further toward England. The question isn't whether English clubs have more money. The question is, how did the most successful league in European history become financially irrelevant? To understand how Spanish football tied its own hands, we need to talk about something called the squad cost limit. It sounds boring, but this single policy is strangling Europe's most storied clubs. Here's how it works. La Liga calculates each club's total revenue, subtracts their debts and non-sporting expenses, then tells them exactly how much they can spend on players, coaches, and youth systems combined. Not just transfers, everything. Salaries, bonuses, agent fees, the lot. Real Madrid, despite being the most successful club in Champions League history, has a salary cap of €754 million. That sounds massive until you realize Barcelona's cap is just €426 million, and Sevilla, €684,000. Not million, thousand. That's less than most Premier League players earn in a month. But here's the kicker. If you're over your limit, you can only use 1/3 of any money you raise to register new signings. Sell a player for $60 million, you can only spend $20 million of it. Get a new sponsor worth $90 million, $30 million is all you're allowed to reinvest in the squad. This is why Barcelona couldn't keep Lionel Messi. Not because they couldn't afford him, but because La Liga's own rules prevented them from registering his contract. The greatest player in the club's history, forced out by bureaucracy. It's why Athletic Bilbao, a team in this year's Champions League, started all 11 players making their European debut for the first time since 1995. They simply can't afford experienced Champions League players anymore. Meanwhile, in England, no salary cap, no spending limit, no restrictions whatsoever. Manchester City can spend €242 million on wages. Manchester United, €216 million. Even newly promoted Burnley has a €41 million wage bill, more than half the clubs in Serie A. The irony is devastating. La Liga introduced these rules to create financial stability and protect clubs from bankruptcy. Instead, they've created a system where their own superstars choose mid-table English clubs over European royalty. Spanish football didn't just shoot itself in the foot, it reloaded and kept firing. In 2016-17, Newcastle United were playing in the Championship, England's second tier. Fast forward to 2025, and they're generating €372 million in annual revenue. That's more than AC Milan, more than Juventus, and dangerously close to Barcelona's struggling finances. How did a club that was relegated just 10 years ago become more financially powerful than teams with multiple European cups? The answer lies in something Spanish clubs can only dream of: unrestricted growth. Newcastle's transformation began with their return to the Premier League, but it accelerated through Champions League participation. Each European campaign brought tens of millions in prize money, broadcasting fees, and commercial opportunities. No salary caps holding them back, no spending limits restricting their ambition. Compare that to Barcelona's reality. The club that once boasted the world's largest stadium now plays at the Olympic Stadium with half the capacity, while Camp Nou undergoes renovation. Matchday revenue, once their strongest asset, has plummeted by 63 million euro. Meanwhile, St. James's Park roars with 80,000 fans every other week, each ticket priced at Premier League premiums. Aston Villa tells an even more remarkable story. A club that narrowly avoided relegation in 2020 has grown their revenue by 310 million euros through European competition. That's more growth in 5 years than most La Liga clubs generate in total annual revenue. The role reversal is complete. Clubs that were once considered small by European standards now dwarf traditional powerhouses. Spanish directors watch helplessly as their best young talents choose Aston Villa over Valencia, Brighton over Athletic Club, Fulham over Real Betis, not because of sporting ambition, but because English football now offers better financial security than Spain. This isn't temporary market correction. This is permanent structural change. The foundation of Premier League dominance isn't built on oil money or American investment alone. It's built on television contracts that have created the most ruthless money-making machine in sports history. Every Premier League club receives £89 million just for existing. That's the base payment before performance bonuses, before facility fees, before international broadcasting. £89 million guaranteed, simply for having 20 teams show up every season. La Liga's entire broadcasting pot for all 20 clubs, $1.5 billion. The Premier League's £3.4 billion. That's more than double, distributed among the same number of teams. But here's the genius of the English system. While Barcelona and Real Madrid hoard 30% of Spain's television money between them, Manchester City receive just 5.7% of England's total. The wealth gets spread, creating 20 financially viable competitors instead of 2 untouchable giants. This creates a virtuous cycle that La Liga simply cannot match. More competitive leagues attract bigger global audiences. Bigger audiences demand higher rights fees. Higher rights fees fund better players. Better players create more competitive leagues. The cycle repeats and the gap widens. Premier League revenue has grown 9% annually for the past decade. La Liga, 4%. The Bundesliga, 6%. Serie A, 4%. Every single year, English football pulls further ahead while the rest of Europe stagnate. Even the negotiation cycles favor England. While German, Italian, and Spanish leagues have seen their recent TV deals reduced, the Premier League has secured upward revisions in every negotiation for 15 straight years. The 2025 deal, £6.7 billion over 4 years, a 26% increase. The psychological impact is devastating for Spanish football. When Sevilla president Jose Castro watches Brighton spend $200 million in one summer, he knows his club's entire annual budget wouldn't cover their bench players' wages. Television created this monster, and every broadcast, every global viewer, every subscription fee makes it stronger. Here's the cruel irony of European football in 2025. The league with the most Champions League success is slowly being frozen out of its own competition. Spanish clubs have won 20 Champions League titles, 14 Europa League trophies, and 16 UEFA Super Cups. For 2 decades, from 2005 to 2018, La Liga dominated Europe like no league before or since. Barcelona reached 8 semi-finals in 10 years. Real Madrid collected 4 Champions League crowns in 5 seasons. Yet this season, La Liga has just 5 representatives in the Champions League. The Premier League? 6 England. Despite winning far fewer European trophies, the qualification system has become a mirror of financial power rather than sporting heritage. UEFA's coefficient rankings reward recent performance, and recent performance requires the kind of sustained investment that Spanish clubs simply cannot match anymore. The statistics reveal a league in decline. Since 2016, Barcelona have reached just 1 Champions League semi-final in 9 attempts. They even dropped into the Europa League, their first time in Europe's second tier for 21 years. Atletico Madrid haven't progressed past the quarterfinals in their last 5 attempts. Sevilla, once Europa League specialists, failed to escape a group containing Salzburg and Wolfsburg last season. But the most damning evidence lies in youth development. Spanish clubs logged just 29,000 minutes for under-21 players last season, the lowest in Europe's top 5 leagues. Compare that to League One's 71,000 minutes. Spanish football isn't just losing current talent, it's failing to develop the next generation. On the opening weekend of La Liga 2025, 7 clubs fielded starting lineups with an average age over 28. In the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, and League One combined, just 8 teams total. Spanish football has become geriatric while its competitors stay young and hungry. The Champions League was supposed to be where sporting merit mattered most. Instead, it's become the ultimate showcase of financial inequality. When Newcastle United can outspend Barcelona in the transfer market, when Aston Villa's revenue growth exceeds Atletico Madrid's entire budget, the competition's integrity is compromised. Europe's most successful footballing nation is watching its clubs become tourists in their own tournament. So where does this end? La Liga's financial controls were designed to create sustainability, to prevent the reckless spending that destroyed clubs across Europe. While Spanish clubs practice restraint, Premier League teams practice dominance. Every transfer window, every Champions League campaign, every television deal widens the gap further. What started as a financial advantage has become a structural stranglehold. The question isn't whether La Liga can catch up, it's whether Spanish football can survive as anything more than a feeder league for English clubs. When your greatest rival isn't Real Madrid or Barcelona, but Brighton and Newcastle, the game has fundamentally changed. This is football's new reality. The richest league in the world isn't just competing with Europe's elite, it's consuming them. The financial Cold War is over. England won.